Imagine this. You're sitting alone in your room. It's late. Too late for work, too early for sleep. The lights are dim, the air still, and your phone screen glares up at you like a silent judge. There's no reason to feel this way, not really. You're not in immediate danger. No one is breaking in. You have a roof over your head, food in the fridge, people who say they care. And yet, your heart is pounding like it's running from something. Your chest feels tight. You keep scrolling, tapping, clicking, anything to keep your mind distracted from a question it keeps whispering beneath the surface. Why do you feel like something is always about to go wrong? You rub your temples. You blame caffeine. Or lack of sleep. Or maybe your job, or the economy, or your ex. But deep down, in that quiet place you rarely let yourself explore, you wonder, what if this is just how you are now? A knot in your stomach, your mind racing, your soul never quite at rest. You try to breathe. You remind yourself of everything you've achieved, everything that's fine. But it doesn't fix it. And that's when a darker thought surfaces, unwelcome, but brutally honest. What if you've forgotten what peace feels like? The truth is, anxiety is no longer something that visits you in moments of stress. It's the wallpaper of your life. Constant. Subtle. Background noise that never stops humming. You don't even notice how tense your shoulders are until someone points it out. You don't remember the last time you laughed without looking over your shoulder mentally, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And what's more disturbing, you're not alone. Look around, the most successful people you know seem the most shattered inside. The ones with the loudest laughs go quiet when no one's watching. Everyone's wired, caffeinated, self-medicating. Everyone is pretending. Pretending they aren't one unanswered email away from spiraling. Pretending that the constant buzzing in their minds is just part of being an adult. But is it? Think about it. How did we get here? How did humanity evolve over hundreds of thousands of years, surviving wild beasts, famine, war, and death, only to end up afraid of being left unread? Why are you, a sentient being with a miraculous brain and a heartbeat gifted from billions of years of cosmic evolution, sitting in the dark, terrified of Monday? How did the tiger outside the cave become the doubt inside your chest? Here's the paradox. You are safer than any of your ancestors ever were. And yet you are more anxious. You have access to infinite knowledge, comfort, and tools, and still, you lie awake at night staring into the abyss. Why? Some blame social media. Some blame trauma. Some blame modern life, capitalism, the dopamine trap, the death of God, or the overload of choice. But none of these are complete answers. They're surface-level diagnoses of something far deeper. Something more primal. Something ancient hiding in your nervous system, quietly puppeteering your every choice. A ghost in the machine, wired into your biology, reinforced by your upbringing, and validated by a society that worships productivity but ignores the soul. And maybe, just maybe, it's not you that's broken. Maybe your anxiety isn't a malfunction. Maybe it's a message, a signal, a flare from the depths of your psyche. A whisper saying, you are not living in alignment with something essential. But what is that thing? What is it you've lost, or buried, or silenced, that now screams through your body as fear? Could it be meaning? Could it be that you were never meant to live like this? To be constantly stimulated, constantly comparing, constantly running without knowing where? And if so, how do you begin to unravel the wiring that led you here? There's a reason why the most brilliant philosophers of our time stared into the void and came back with truths most of us are too busy to hear. There's a reason Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, and Viktor Frankl wrote of meaning as the ultimate human need. They weren't just theorizing. They were trying to save us from ourselves. Your anxiety might not be your enemy. It might be the last honest part of you. But before we can confront it, we must understand where it comes from. Not just biologically, but psychologically, philosophically, culturally, because only then can we answer the question that sits inside you like a stone in your chest. Why are you so anxious? And what is it trying to tell you? What if your anxiety isn't random? What if it isn't just a chemical imbalance, or bad luck, or the residue of a traumatic childhood? What if it's the inevitable byproduct of a world that has taught you to abandon your inner compass for an external map, drawn by strangers, institutions, and algorithms? Let's trace the roots, not the symptoms. Somewhere between birth and adulthood, you were taught, often unconsciously, that your worth must be earned. Not through being, but through doing. Through grades, applause, a curated identity, a checklist of shoulds, passed down like sacred commandments. You should be productive, you should be happy, you should be likable, you should have it figured out by now, you should be more grateful. But no one asked, what if you're exhausted from performing? In his psychoanalytic work, Carl Jung warned us of the persona, the mask we wear to meet the expectations of society. He believed that anxiety often arises when our authentic self becomes suffocated by this mask. When who we are internally is too radically different from who we pretend to be outwardly, the psyche rebels. It sends signals: discomfort, panic, numbness, a haunting sense that something is off, but you can't quite name it. You were not born anxious. You became anxious trying to survive in a world that values image over essence. Now layer in Friedrich Nietzsche's diagnosis of modern man, spiritually bankrupt, disoriented by the death of God, grasping for meaning in a marketplace of empty distractions. When the sacred dissolves, he said, we're left with two choices: invent new meaning, or spiral into nihilism. The anxious mind flirts with the latter daily. So what do? We cope. We adapt. We turn into fragmented selves. We chase validation like oxygen, hoping it will calm the fire inside, but it never does. Every like, every compliment, every milestone reached feels good, for a moment. Then it fades, and the anxious hum returns. Nietzsche would call this the life of the last man, the passive, anesthetized modern being who no longer aspires toward greatness, only comfort and avoidance of discomfort. And what is anxiety, if not the soul's protest against a life of numbed meaning? And then there's Arthur Schopenhauer, who dared to say that human suffering is not a bug in the system, it is the system. That desire itself breeds perpetual dissatisfaction. That to want is to suffer. And the more we chase pleasure, or status, or certainty, the more anxious we become, because we're feeding the very thing that enslaves us. Look around, we're drowning in options yet starving for truth. Every advertisement whispers, "You're not enough until you buy this." Every feed scroll says, "Look at how everyone else is thriving while you fall behind." No wonder your nervous system is on fire. Even Jean-Paul Sartre, in his existential musings, described anxiety as the vertigo of freedom, the terrifying awareness that we are free to shape our lives, but also fully responsible for what we make of them. Choice is empowering, but it is also paralyzing. The more directions you can go, the more afraid you become of choosing the wrong one, so you hesitate. You doubt. You overthink. And anxiety creeps in to fill the void. Meanwhile, your biology, evolved for the dangers of the savannah, cannot distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and a delayed response to your text. Your amygdala lights up as if your survival is under threat. Because in some primal sense it is. Not your body's survival, but your social identity, your imagined self, your place in the tribe. Anxiety is what happens when the mind tries to warn the soul. You are not where you're supposed to be, but in a world that rewards hustle over stillness, outward success over inward clarity, this message is often ignored. Or worse, pathologized. And here's the dangerous twist: sometimes, your anxiety is rational. Maybe your life does lack alignment. Maybe your values are buried beneath layers of conditioning. Maybe your relationships do feel hollow because they're built on versions of you that never truly existed. Your anxiety might be trying to wake you up, to say, this isn't the life you were meant to settle for. This isn't the version of you that was born to thrive. But here's the tragedy: we numb the signal instead of decoding it. We label it disorder and medicate it before we've listened to what it wants us to hear. And while medication can help regulate the overwhelming storm, it must not become a muzzle for the deeper question: what is my anxiety trying to reveal about the life I'm living? Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust and still found meaning in unimaginable suffering, wrote that anxiety often emerges in the existential vacuum, a space where one lacks meaning, direction, or purpose. He didn't see anxiety as a flaw. He saw it as a compass pointing towards something unlived. So what happens when a society tells you meaning is old-fashioned? What happens when you wake up one day and realize you've been living according to someone else's blueprint, and you're not even sure if you like the life it built? You begin to fray. Your body tightens. Your mind loops. You're constantly on, not because you're weak, but because something inside you is begging to break out of the cage. But escape requires clarity. You must be brave enough to peel back the layers, to see how much of what you call you is actually a collage of inherited expectations, unhealed wounds, and silent compromises. And you must be willing to entertain a dangerous possibility. Maybe your anxiety is not a malfunction, but a wake-up call, a sacred alarm clock ringing at the core of your being. And if you listen closely, if you dare to decode it, what might you discover? Not yet. Not now. Because first, you must understand how deep this goes. This isn't just about you. This is about a civilization that is losing itself and dragging your soul down with it. Let's explore the unseen consequences next. Because they are darker than you think, and far more personal. Imagine walking through a city. It's 8 a.m. Thousands of people brushing past each other, faces blank, eyes tired, earbuds in, coffee in hand, minds elsewhere. Everyone moving. No one arriving. Now pause. Look closer. Beneath the polished clothes, beneath the curated schedules, beneath the quick "I'm good, how are you?" lies something far more unsettling. They're afraid, but they don't know of what. They're running, but they can't name the thing they're fleeing. They're striving, but they've forgotten why. This is the world anxiety built. And you live in it. We call it normal. But normal is broken, because what we've normalized is a culture of performance, disconnection, and silent desperation. And the price? It's not just individual unease, it's the decay of intimacy, meaning, attention, and even selfhood. Let's name the consequences. All of them. You start with the basics: lost sleep, racing thoughts, panic in traffic, dread at work. But it gets worse. You stop trusting your own instincts. You question your feelings, then feel guilty for having them. You perform your identity instead of living it. You curate instead of connect. You survive instead of exist. And here's where the damage becomes invisible, but lethal. Anxiety rewires your perception of reality. You start to see threats where there are none. Criticism in neutral tones. Judgment in silence. Abandonment in space. Your brain, in a well-meaning attempt to protect you, creates illusions, patterns that don't exist but feel terrifyingly real. This is the work of your default mode network, a collection of brain regions responsible for self-referential thought. In anxiety, this network becomes overactive. You ruminate. You future trip. You replay conversations, catastrophize scenarios, and get trapped in an internal echo chamber that never lets you rest. You see a friend online but not replying. Your mind writes an entire novel of betrayal, rejection, and abandonment in under 30 seconds. And the worst part? Your nervous system reacts as if it's true. Cortisol. Adrenaline. Fight or flight. But there's no threat. Just a projection. A ghost. And when this happens daily, over months, over years, you begin to lose trust in your own ability to interpret the world accurately. You begin to doubt not just others, but yourself. And so you pull back. You isolate. You fake smiles. You keep your real feelings behind glass walls, terrified of being too much, too emotional, too sensitive. Anxiety makes you forget who you are, then punishes you for trying to remember. Now zoom out. This isn't just a personal crisis. It's a cultural epidemic. Anxiety is the operating system of modern society. Why? Because it makes us productive. Anxious people buy more, click more, hustle more, obey more. They stay up late to prove their worth, wake up early to beat the algorithm, and silence their needs to maintain the image. What do corporations, industries, and institutions gain from your peace? Nothing. But your anxiety? That's profitable. You think you're failing at life, So you buy books, apps, supplements, coaching programs. You think you're not enough, so you chase degrees, status, social currency. You think you're falling behind, so you work harder, burn out faster, and beg for rest that never comes. An anxious populace is easy to control, easy to sell to, easy to distract. You were never taught to feel whole. You were taught to feel incomplete, so you'd spend your life trying to fill the void. But here's the most haunting truth of all. Anxiety doesn't just shape how you feel, it shapes who you become. Every time you suppress your intuition to avoid judgment, you shrink. Every time you over-explain to make others comfortable, you bend. Every time you agree to something that betrays you, just to avoid conflict, you fracture. Over time, these tiny betrayals form a pattern. And that pattern becomes identity. Not because it's who you are, but because it's who you've learned to be in order to survive. And then, one day, you look in the mirror and wonder, why don't I recognize myself anymore? This is not melodrama. This is neurology. Conditioning. Culture. Generational trauma. The invisible inheritance passed down through systems that valued obedience over authenticity, appearance over truth. And the longer you stay in this trance, the more it costs you. Real connection becomes terrifying, because to connect, you must be seen. But being seen means risking rejection. So you settle for shallow friendships, transactional relationships, emotional half-truths. You call it busy. But deep down, you know, it's fear. Creativity dries up, because creativity requires play, vulnerability, and slowness, all of which anxiety strangles. Decision-making becomes torture, because every choice feels like a referendum on your worth. Joy feels suspicious, because the moment you feel good, your brain warns you. Don't get too comfortable. Something bad always follows. You don't just fear loss. You fear the anticipation of loss. And so, even happiness becomes another source of stress. This is not living. This is surviving under siege. And the cruel irony? The more anxious you become, the more you seek external control. The tighter you grip your calendar, your image, your relationships, your thoughts. But control is a mirage. The more you chase it, the more it eludes you. And yet there is a way out. But it begins not with control, but with surrender. Not with suppression, but with rebellion. You cannot fix anxiety by becoming better at pretending you're not anxious. You must go deeper. You must unlearn the lies, decode the signals, reclaim the parts of you that were silenced. Because what you call anxiety might be your inner voice begging you to wake up. And if that's true, then this isn't a disease. It's a revolution waiting to happen. Now comes the real turning point. Now we rebel. Let's say you've been drowning for so long that you forgot what breathing feels like. You've accepted the tightness in your chest as normal. You've adapted to the noise in your mind like someone living next to a freeway. Always alert, but pretending to sleep. Now imagine this. You stop swimming. You stop performing. You let go. And in that terrifying surrender, you begin to realize the water was never that deep. You were just too afraid to put your feet down. This is where rebellion begins. Not with anger, not with noise, but with clarity. A soft, seismic clarity that whispers, what if everything I was taught to fear was actually a doorway? Let's walk through those doors. Door 1. Reject the tyranny of optimization. You've been trained to treat yourself like a project. Your morning routine must be perfect. Your productivity tracked. Your body sculpted. Your mind hacked. Your time monetized. But you are not an app to be optimized. You are a soul. And souls do not exist to produce. They exist to experience. To create. To feel. To be. Rebellion means slowing down in a culture addicted to speed. It means saying, enough, in a system that always says more. It means daring to be present, even when presence reveals discomfort. And yes, discomfort will come. Because when you stop numbing, you start feeling. And that's not weakness. That's awakening. Door 2. Reclaim the sacred practice of saying no. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you teach your nervous system that your safety depends on betrayal. No wonder you're anxious. No wonder you don't trust yourself. To heal anxiety, you must begin the radical act of choosing yourself. Not in theory, but in practice. Say no to the dinner you don't want to attend. Say no to the conversation that drains you. Say no to the role you've outgrown. Say no to the inner critic disguised as ambition. Saying no doesn't close your life, it opens it, because every no is a gate. And behind that gate is your freedom. Door 3. Drop the mask, piece by piece. The mask kept you safe. But now, it keeps you small. You don't have to rip it off overnight. Just loosen it. Let someone see your tired eyes. Tell the truth when someone asks how you are. Let your voice tremble when you speak about what matters. Let yourself cry. In public. In silence. In front of people who matter. Vulnerability is not performance. It's presence. It's the refusal to let your nervous system stay in costume. Yes, it's scary. But it's real. And real is rare. In a world of avatars, authenticity is rebellion. Door 4. Listen to the body. It never lies. Your mind tells stories. Some are true. Most are inherited. But your body? Your body is ancient. Honest. Brutal. Anxiety is a full body signal, not a mental glitch. And if you want to break free, you must come back to the body, not through force. Not through punishment. But through presence. Move until you can feel your breath. Stretch until you touch the parts of you that feel frozen. Dance, even if it feels awkward. Shake. Walk. Breathe. Tremble. Let your body complete the stress cycles your culture interrupted. You were never meant to hold it all in. You were meant to move it through. This is not spiritual fluff. It's physiology. Somatic wisdom. Embodied rebellion. Door 5. Ask better questions. What if your anxiety doesn't mean something's wrong with me? What if it means something important is trying to emerge? Stop asking, why am I broken? Why can't I keep up? Why can't I be normal? Start asking, what do I need that I've been ignoring? Where am I out of alignment with my truth? What version of me am I protecting by staying afraid? Good questions dismantle bad stories. And the story of, I am defective, is the lie that built your prison. Door 6. Cultivate stillness, even in chaos. You don't need to escape the world to find peace. You need to stop assuming peace is outside of you. Stillness is not the absence of noise. It's the refusal to be controlled by it. That means carving moments of slowness inside a rapid-fire culture. 5 minutes of silence in the morning. 3 deep breaths before speaking. 1 conscious pause before reacting. Letting go of one opinion you don't need to hold anymore. This is how you rewire the brain. This is how you make anxiety lose its grip. Not by defeating it, but by refusing to feed it. Door 7. Remember what you've forgotten. You were once whole. Before the conditioning. Before the programming. Before anxiety made a home in your gut. You were once wild. Curious. Alive. Unafraid to laugh too loud. Unbothered by timelines. Willing to try and fail and try again. That self is not gone. She is sleeping. He is waiting. They are underneath the debris of approval, performance, and fear, and they're still breathing. Waiting for you to come back. You don't need to invent a new self. You need to remember the one you lost. And so, the rebellion begins, not in some dramatic explosion, but in 1,000 quiet moments where you choose presence over panic, truth over image, sovereignty over fear. Each choice rewires the system. Each breath carves a new path. Each no becomes a sacred yes to something deeper. You are not here to live in reaction. You are here to reclaim authorship, to write a story that anxiety doesn't get to narrate anymore. But even this rebellion, empowering, necessary, soul-restoring, leads to something deeper, something stranger, something final. Because once you peel back the layers, once the anxiety fades, once the noise stills, a new question emerges. If I am no longer anxious, who am I now? And the answer will haunt you, heal you, break you wide open. So let's walk through one last door, the one labeled, the ultimate truth.